Yeah. So the next team we're going to have up is going to be our Lapolis project. Oh, sorry. JHDC is going to is going to be going up next.
Good morning, everybody. We worked on the Jesus House DC's internal project, and my name is Cardozo, and
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tashika.
at some point during the presentation, due to the layout, I would have to walk back to give a little bit of demonstration on what we worked on. But if we can just move on and go ahead and start with the project.
All right, if we can have your attention, we will give you a minute to look at the binders. We want to direct your attention to that. So what we worked on, for the project, we had to do the content management system. And in that preparation, we had to organize data for the church and make sure put stuff in certain areas in the system so that as a team or as a church or as a department, they would be able to find or easily access the information.
And while we were doing this, we also wanted to improve their sharing capabilities as well as the productivity. So this would also help with, in terms of the access control, help with security, and also make sure that they're able to streamline all the information and workflows in the way that they really do want to do it in the church. Next slide, please. So this was just some of the project deliverables that we had. It's not really visible, but we had to, give them a presentation, and we gave them also a manual for some of the information that we did and some of the guidelines. We also have there includes a hard copy as well, including some recommendations that we have set out for you, to continue on with the project. So if you can go to the next slide, please.
The method that we used, we had to gather data from the various departments. We reorganized the file system. We also had to get an understanding from the information that we got from them on exactly how to really categorize each item and put it in the right folder. We are using the library portal, community edition, and some of those things that we had to use just to make sure that we can make it beautiful. We had to use Adobe Photoshop, and cloud hosted the software.
Okay. And again, just some of the plugins and can you go back to the previous slide, please? Yeah, just some of the plugins we had to use, and we needed to use like the cloud hosting for Amazon, which really definitely was going to help us host the entire system. So we had to create quote unquote a dummy system to actually test out all these capabilities before creating the actual system that Jesus House would be using. So if you want to take over. Go ahead. This is just the structure which we set out for the folders, and this was structured in this method so that they would be able to have public and private pages and information separated within the system so that maybe outside users can be able to access just the information for themselves, and other users who are actually within the system can access the other information.
As Cardozo walks towards the back, we're going to do a live demonstration. Can you switch to the next slide, please? So in what he just showed you was the different tiers, the different folders, and each one we talked about who would have access to the different folders, because we're looking again about security, making sure that certain items are confidential. We apologize for this. Tier 1, the head pastor, the associate pastor, and the system administrator, they would have access to all the folders. So if you are If you hold that title, you would have that type of access. In Tier 2, we call them the power users, which would be the key JHDC employee and users. They would have access to data across the various departments. In Tier 3 would be the ministry heads. They would have access to all appropriate area only when specified. So again, this would have to be assigned to them. And he's going to show you exactly in the system how to assign the roles. Tier 4, the ministry workers and volunteer, they would have access only to information that's less sensitive. So again, and then the last step would be the public. So the way the system is created, we have a public view and a private view. So the public will only be able to see certain things for the public. Anything else that's private and for internal staff, you would have to have certain permissions. All right.
So we created, this is just some of the deliverables, and in terms of what we used within the test system, we used one of their departments, which was community outreach. We uploaded some of their folders and information and documents into the system, and then we also proceeded to test out some of the various tiers and the access controls functions. So I would go ahead and show you a thing or two within the system that we created for them.
All right, which page is it for?
It is page 7 of 10 in the manual.
All right, page 7. And I'm sorry we weren't able to give everybody, but it's our clients, they will be able to see exactly step by step what he's, well,
All right.
so he will talk you through the process. Okay.
If you can just follow me with with F, which is the very top of the page. Now we have in highlight, which gives the required permissions, which would only be for tiers 1 and 2. So only those at the very top would actually be able to grant roles within the system and actually manage and modify them. So if you were to click on the admin tab, which is right towards the top, when you click on, let's see, go to the home, it takes you to the control panel. And once you get to the control panel, if you click on the roles, and then once you click on the roles and you get to, you can either add roles here or modify roles. Now, if you notice here, we have tier 1 and tier 5. And these were just some ways, some of the accounts that we created to actually manage and test the roles. If you were to click on actions, you'll be able to either grant extra permissions, assign members, or view the current members that are there, or review any privileges. So this really helps you customize a lot of the functionalities within the system. Now, to just go in and show you a little bit more what we did as far as the site. We do have, as you can see here, it has community outreach. It has the public-facing site, which this would pretty much be what the users see or the public sees when they come into the site. Now, this has not been tailored. The look and feel of it has not been worked on. But if the members actually were to log into the site, they would be going into the community outreach, the hidden side. Now, as you can see here, it has their folder structure within it, and within this folder structure, it also has their various departments and ministries within them. So each person who is assigned to a particular ministry would only be able to have access based on their roles and their site preferences to these various folders. So if we can also, this was just a little bit of what we wanted to show to you guys. And if I can just go back to the main side, you can see that we also created a couple of extra sites for all the different departments, and you can see them here. Let's see here. Currently, the system is not cooperating as perfectly, but as you can see here, these are all accessible from the department's homepage, although currently it looks blank because we didn't have any customizations to it. So you can continue to the next slide.
Okay. So as Cardozo is walking back, we're going to talk about the challenges and the limitations that we face on this project. And what we faced was the software itself, Liferay. This community edition software, it limits you on exactly what you really can or cannot do. It's not user-friendly. It's not user-friendly. And adding in the plugins, various plugins. You want to talk about the plugins?
Yes, so about the plugins, there were various core functions that we wanted to implement that Jesus House really needed for their system. So when it comes to, say, for example, inputting forms and doing workflow, so the chain of command or the chain of what happens if someone fills out a form, what happens if someone needed to request for a building. Now, these forms do not come within the template itself. They either need to be custom created with by writing code, or look for a very probable application or plugin, which for the community edition, we weren't able to gain access to most of this. And we did have a lot of help trying to research on this, but at the end of the day, we weren't able to come up with at least 3 main functions that the Jesus House really needed to get this working for them.
The other restriction that we had, or constraint that we had, was the timeline. We had 4 months basically with the project, and we feel that this could be a really great addition to your organization, but the time we would need more about 6 months on the project in order to iron out everything and do a lot of testing, because especially with the software, and in order for you to go open or public with it, you want to make sure that we can test and implement everything that we need. So the timeline on the project was a little short. The knowledge of the proposed system, that's another constraint that we had. Just working with the team. For us, our knowledge, this is something that we were learning as we went along, but also with the team that was assigned the computer tech, we feel that if we had a subject matter expert on it, especially with this system, again, we could have taken it a little further.
Next slide, please. So again, just some of the recommendations would be, at the very least, we worked on the project, as part-time project work, doing this part-time, but it would be definitely great to have someone with in-depth experience of maybe content management systems, and who would actually put in a lot more effort than we did to really bring out the fruits of this, the project. Now, testing, as she mentioned earlier, and also the development structure that we created, you can also use this as one of our recommendations for another content management system. If you can go to the next slide. So we actually also looked up some alternate solutions for you, and one of the things we came up with was either go with the Enterprise Edition, or you can also go with Microsoft Office 365. Now, just if you want to talk a bit about this.
So with the Microsoft Office 365, that seems to be very user-friendly. And they have a lot of things that already, plugins that, in terms of having access to PowerPoint, uploading documents, sharing documents within the organization. Very easy transaction versus using the Live Free Community Edition. So the Office 365, honestly, with the dynamic CRM, will be perfect, because again, when you're looking at, especially of this nature, the size and the scope of the project, you're looking at making things user-friendly, you're making things be seamless across the board, and also having the consistency and the uniformity that you're looking for. We just feel that this system would be better.
And one of the considerations, of course, would be the costs, which run somewhere between about $80 per user, but per month. But the good thing about this too is you don't actually need all 200 plus users having a subscription. You probably just need the tier 1s and the tier 2s, which will probably be at maximum of 10 users having full access. They can share their capabilities and with all the other members that are actually using the system, so you wouldn't actually need it for every user.
And $80 is most likely on the higher end, because when we worked it out the first time, it ranged about $60.
Yes.
So it all depends, again, on what you're adding or what plugins you'd like to have in your package.
And also have someone on staff that would be able to manage the system as well. Next slide, please. So the Enterprise Edition for Live Free itself does offer better capabilities as well. It would be something to look into, and it does provide a lot more bug fixes. Say with security updates, they do provide that. They provide customer service and more customizable access control, and some of the plugins that we weren't able to access, you would have better access to them when you use this system as well.
However, the cost is extremely high. If you're looking here, that's about $17,000 a year for the server, and it's still not as user-friendly. So again, we want to make sure that, especially having volunteers and your staff, you want to make sure, again, you're considering time, the cost factor, staff, you want to factor in everything. So you want to go with a system that will be easy to implement, easy to monitor, easy to use for your staff. So even though Liferay was the chosen software, we still think that Microsoft 365 would be better.
All right, so just to conclude, we did learn a lot from the project in terms of understanding content management systems, practical applications of access control. We did improve our management skills, with everything that happened during the project. It was a very great experience as well. And we also learned some conflict resolution even amongst ourselves. So we definitely learned a lot during this project, and thank you all for giving us the chance.
We'll open up the floor for any questions. Any questions or comments?
Well, I really want to thank you guys. You guys did an excellent job, and I want all of us to clap for them again. This is a dream come true for us. I remember the first time this came out was 2007, when we did change management project. And so think about it, from 2007 to 2016, it's a long time. And, I think this is the beginning. And, I think your recommendations and, everything you guys have talked about, we would look into it. But I think what I want to say is that I think from the beginning, I think we knew also that the time frame was quite short. Especially if you're handling this kind of project, you're building a database. It requires more time and effort. And, I know you guys have sacrificed a lot. I know that times, there were a lot of back and forth. But, I think at the end of the day, you've given us something that, trust me, that we will build upon. We will take your recommendations to heart, and I'm really excited because I believe this is going to really improve our internal systems, and it's something that the church is going to invest in, and that we will do to make our operations more efficient. But I want to thank your team. Of course, I know Mayowa.
He did help out with the recommendations as well.
Yeah.
Actually, towards the end as well, he did. We actually solicited some of his help coming up with the recommendations as well.
Yeah, great. And like I said, I think Lekon obviously was the tech person involved. He moved also in between, so I know there were lots of challenges. But personally, from me, I think. I learned a lot. We also learned a lot from the project and from interacting with you guys. And, I know, I know towards the end we had our weekly meetings and all that, but, it was an eye-opener for us. And I think the time and effort you guys have put in is not wasted. And, I know one day you're going to come back and you will see that this is actually something that you guys have developed, and you guys have put your time in. I want to really appreciate you on behalf of the church. Thank you very much for the excellent job.
I'm excited about this particular one because I think it's something that would really ease a lot of the bottlenecks that come with obtaining information. And, people who come into the system, they want to know what the church stands for. How do we have blueprints? Do we have templates? Do we have information so that it will be a soft landing for them? I know that you're not the technical people, but for even taking out the step to get this started off, it's awesome. And I really personally say thank you. Now, when I look at I'm very interested in recommendations from a perspective of what are we trying to, and you correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the scope definition for this assignment. What are we trying to achieve? I talked about easing the stress or the bottlenecks that come with gathering information or things about the church, for example, and you want to do it ready, fast, online, real time, right? So when you were talking about the different tiers of people who should access this portal or the system, you now talked about cost. And you narrowed it down to tier 1 and tier 2. Personally, I usually go the other way around from a perspective of what are we trying to solve? Then cost now plays in. The reason why I say that is maybe when you define tier 1, I saw head pastor, associate pastor, and system administrator. I remembered. A system administrator. Maybe what you want to do is actually define that, because some of the people in each of the tiers really sometimes don't, not that they don't need it, they just have access to it, but they don't use it often, if you know what I mean. Yeah? So I think it would be helpful to have each of those layers define it a little bit further, because clarity is very key. All right? And then you move on to tier 2. And again, the structure of the organization should actually inform, I would think, right, what the recommendation is as far as this is concerned. On a related note, people come into the system and they say, for example, for somebody, he said 5 years down the line, he didn't realize that a certain department exists because there was nowhere to seek the information. Okay, so if I take such a person who is not a worker, who is not a HOD, is not a volunteer, has never joined a committee or a project team, so which means he will never really need the information if those people fall within tier 1 and tier 2. So even at that level, it's expensive, yes, but I don't know, and that's you, because you're the professional in this, if people can still have access to basic information or where to go to. Yes, please.
So when we're looking at the tiers, we're looking at who has permission to edit documents, or, who has permission to edit documents or make any changes in the system, because again, we're looking at making sure that your documents are secure. So it's not that they cannot see it, it's that they cannot make changes to the certain documents. Because we want to make sure, again, when we're looking at different level, as a volunteer, I shouldn't have to go into the system and make any changes to your official documents.
Perfect.
So the tiers are more so a security measure.
Fantastic. So my next point is there an expiration date that you can access whatever information?
So you can set account expiration dates depending on, say, if you have a volunteer who will be here for a week or so. You can set times where maybe this account would expire within a week or 2 weeks, say if that's the entire time which they would need access to certain permissions. Now, in terms of on the LifeRaise, the management system, that would be something that the system administration needs to have hands-on awareness on. So using the workflows, they would be alerted to know that this account user no longer needs access and this account needs to be deleted or deactivated.
Okay.
So
I'm so sorry I'm making you answer this question.